The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was filled with representatives from 100 different worlds. Some had scales, others had feathers, and a few were made of living crystal that sang when they moved. They had gathered to decide the fate of humanity, and the mood in the room was one of quiet satisfaction. High Counselor stood at the center of the chamber, his four purple eyes scanning the assembled delegates. He was a species that had ruled this section of the galaxy for 10,000 years. His gray skin was smooth and hairless, and his movements were slow and deliberate, as befitting a creature from a world where nothing ever hurried. "The vote is complete," he announced, his voice carrying through the translation systems that allowed all species to understand each other. "By unanimous decision, the human species will be relocated to a prime. They will be given 50 colony ships and all necessary supplies for settlement. This council wishes them well in their new home." The words were polite. The meaning behind them was murder. Commander Lucy Morgan received the news aboard her ship, the Horizon's Edge, while orbiting Earth. She was a tall woman with short gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. At 42, she was one of the most experienced officers in the human fleet, and she knew exactly what the Council's decision meant. "A prime," she said, reading the official transmission. "They're sending us to a prime." Her executive officer, Lieutenant Park, stood beside her on the bridge. He was younger than Lucy, barely 30, with a calm face that rarely showed emotion, but even he could not hide his reaction to this news. "That's a Category 12, he said. "Nothing survives there. They tried to colonize it 2 centuries ago. They lasted 8 months before the last of them died." Lucy nodded slowly. She pulled up the planetary data on her screen and studied the information that the Council had so kindly provided. The atmosphere was a mix of methane and ammonia, with pockets of oxygen that could explode without warning. The gravity was nearly twice what humans were used to. The native creatures had evolved in conditions so harsh that they made Earth's deadliest predators look like house pets. "They're not even pretending anymore," Lucy said quietly. "This isn't relocation. This is execution." The decision had been a long time coming. Humanity had made first contact with the galactic community 30 years ago, and from the very beginning, the relationship had been troubled. The elder races saw humans as dangerous and unpredictable. They bred too fast, spread too quickly, and refused to accept their place at the bottom of the hierarchy. When humans started expanding beyond their assigned territory, the Council had issued warnings. When humans developed weapons that could threaten ships, the warnings became sanctions. And when a human colony refused to submit to authority and fought back against a peacekeeping force, the Council had decided that enough was enough. The vote to exile humanity had been held in secret. No human representative had been allowed to speak in their defense. By the time Lucy learned of the decision, it was already final. "How many ships do we have?" she asked. 50 colony vessels, as they promised. Most of them are old, but they'll make the journey. We can fit about 2 million people if we pack them tight." 2 million people. Out of the 12 billion humans living across a dozen worlds, only 2 million would be allowed to survive. And even that survival was meant to be temporary. Lucy turned away from the screen and walked to the viewport. Earth hung in the darkness below, blue and green and beautiful. She had been born on that world, had walked its forests and swam in its oceans. Soon, she would never see it again. "Get me Admiral Frank Cole on a secure channel," she said, "and find Dr. Lane. Tell her to pack her research, all of it." Hesitated. "What are you planning, Commander?" Lucy did not answer immediately. She was thinking about what she knew of human history, the long story of her species' survival against impossible odds, ice ages and volcanic eruptions, plagues and famines, wars that had killed millions. Somehow, humans had survived all of it. "The Council thinks they're sending us to die," she finally said. "They've never had to fight for survival, not really. Their worlds are paradise compared to Earth. They don't understand what humans are capable of when our backs are against the wall. And what are we capable of? Lucy turned to face her officer. There was something in her eyes that had never seen before, a fire that burned cold and steady. Anything, she said. We're capable of anything. The preparation took 3 months. 2 million humans were selected from across all the colonies, chosen for their skills, their health, and their willingness to face the unknown. Families were separated. Friends said goodbye for the last time. The colony ships filled with people who knew they were going to their deaths but refused to give up hope. Dr. Lane was one of the first to volunteer. She was an expert in alien life forms, and she saw in a prime not a death sentence but a challenge. She spent the weeks before departure studying every piece of data she could find about the planet's ecosystem, looking for patterns, for weaknesses, for anything that might give humanity an edge. The creatures on a prime are deadly, she told Lucy during one of their planning sessions. But they evolved in a specific environment. They have rules, even if we don't understand them yet. If we can learn those rules, we can survive. Admiral Frank Cole organized the fleet's defenses, such as they were. The colony ships had no weapons, but they did have shields and armor. He worked with his engineers to reinforce the hulls, to prepare for the radiation storms and atmospheric entry that awaited them. Park recruited and trained a security force from among the colonists. He knew that the moment they landed, they would be fighting for their lives against predators that had never seen a human before. His people needed to be ready. And Lucy Morgan held it all together. She was the commander, the leader, the one who made the final decisions. When people came to her with their fears and their doubts, she listened. When they asked her if there was any hope, she told them the truth. "I don't know if we'll survive," she said to a gathering of colonists the night before departure. "I can't promise you that everything will be fine, but I can promise you this: we will not give up. We will not lie down and die just because the galaxy expects us to. We are human beings, and we have been fighting against extinction since the first of our ancestors stood up on 2 legs and dared to challenge the world." The fleet departed the next morning. 50 ships carrying 2 million souls, heading toward a world that had killed every species foolish enough to set foot on it. Behind them, the Galactic Council watched and waited. They were certain that nature would do what politics could not. In a year, maybe 2, the human problem would solve itself. They did not understand what they had done. They did not know that they had just made the worst mistake in galactic history. The ships jumped to faster-than-light speed and vanished into the darkness between stars. Ahead of them lay a prime, the world of death, the place where humanity was meant to end. Instead, it would be the place where humanity was reborn. The first thing Lucy Morgan noticed about a prime was the color of the sky. It was a sickly yellow-green, thick with clouds that moved too fast and changed shape in ways that seemed almost alive. Lightning flickered constantly in the distance, and the air itself seemed to hum with energy. The second thing she noticed was the smell. Even through her sealed helmet, she could detect traces of the atmosphere leaking through. It smelled like rotten eggs mixed with burning metal. Her suit's sensors told her that breathing this air unprotected would kill a human in about 3 minutes. "Landing zone secured," Park reported through the communication system. His voice was steady, but Lucy could hear the tension underneath. No hostile contacts yet. Yet, that was the key word. According to the data they had been given, a prime was home to thousands of predator species, and every single one of them was deadly. The planet had no herbivores because any creature that was not a killer did not survive long enough to reproduce. The first wave of colonists had landed 2 hours ago. 300 men and women in environmental suits, carrying weapons and equipment and hope. They had established a perimeter around the landing site and begun setting up the basic infrastructure for survival. Atmospheric processors, water purifiers, emergency shelters. Lucy was in the second wave, along with Dr. Lane and the rest of the command staff. As their shuttle descended through the turbulent atmosphere, she watched the planet grow larger in the viewport and tried to prepare herself for what awaited. The shuttle touched down hard, its landing strut sinking into soil that was the color of dried blood. Lucy unstrapped herself and moved to the exit hatch, checking her weapon one more time before stepping outside. The gravity hit her immediately. On Earth, she weighed about 60 kilograms. Here, she felt like she weighed over 100. Every step was an effort, every movement required conscious thought. She could see the other colonists struggling with the same problem, their bodies not yet adapted to the crushing weight of this world. "Movement," someone shouted, "northwest perimeter." Lucy turned and saw it coming. The creature was as big as a transport vehicle, with armor plating that covered its entire body and legs that ended in claws the size of swords. It moved with terrifying speed despite its size, covering the distance to the perimeter in seconds. The colonists opened fire. Energy weapons and projectile guns hit the creature from multiple angles, but it did not slow down. The armor plating absorbed the shots like they were nothing. It reached the defensive line and tore through it like paper, killing 4 people before anyone could react. Park was there in an instant, leading a team of his best fighters. They surrounded the creature and hit it with everything they had, looking for weak points, trying to find some way to bring it down. 3 more people died before they discovered that the creature's eyes were unprotected. A single well-aimed shot blinded it, and in its confusion, they were able to drive it back beyond the perimeter. The attack had lasted less than 5 minutes. 7 colonists were dead, 12 more were injured, and this was just the first creature they had encountered. "Welcome to a prime," Lucy said quietly. The first month was a nightmare. The colonists died in ones and twos, taken by predators that attacked without warning from the ground, the air, and even from underground. The atmospheric processors broke down constantly, poisoned by chemicals in the air that the designers had never anticipated. The water sources they found were contaminated with microorganisms that could eat through metal. But humans did not give up. They could not afford to. Dr. Lane threw herself into studying the native ecosystem with a passion that bordered on madness. She worked 20-hour days, analyzing samples, observing predator behavior, trying to find patterns in the chaos. And slowly, piece by piece, she began to understand. "The predators follow the atmospheric pressure," she announced one evening, presenting her findings to the colony leadership. "When the pressure drops, they go underground. When it rises, they come out to hunt. If we can track the pressure changes, we can predict when the attacks will come." It was a small piece of knowledge, but it saved lives. The colonists learned to watch the weather, to seek shelter when the pressure began to rise. The death toll dropped by half in the first week after its discovery. Park developed new tactics for fighting the armored predators. He noticed that they always attacked in the same pattern, charging straight at their target without changing direction. His teams learned to use this against them, setting traps that exploited the creature's aggression. The monsters that had seemed invincible became manageable, then controllable, then almost routine. The colonists adapted in other ways too. They learned which parts of the planet were safer than others, which caves could be used for shelter, and which were death traps. They found plants that could be processed into food and water sources that were clean enough to drink with minimal treatment. They built walls and fences and early warning systems. By the end of the 3rd month, the death rate had dropped to a level that was almost sustainable. People were still dying, but fewer than before. And for the first time since landing, there were more births than deaths. Lucy Morgan walked through the growing settlement one evening, watching her people work. They had built something here, something that the Galactic Council had never believed possible. Not just survival, but the beginning of a real colony, a real home. She stopped by the memorial wall, where the names of the dead were carved into stone. There were hundreds of names already, and there would be more to come. Each one represented a person who had given their life so that humanity could survive. "We won't forget you," Lucy said softly, "and we won't waste your sacrifice." A young woman approached her. Her name was Maria Santos, and she was one of the colonists who had been born during the journey to a prime. She had never known Earth, never seen blue skies or green grass. This deadly world was the only home she had ever known. "Commander," Maria said, "the Council is asking for you. Dr. Lane says she's found something important." Lucy followed Maria to the research center, a reinforced bunker where and her team worked on understanding their new world. Inside, the doctor was waiting with a look of excitement on her face that Lucy had not seen since before the landing. "We've been analyzing the native organisms," said. "Their biology is incredible. They've evolved compounds that allow them to survive in conditions that should be impossible, and some of those compounds are compatible with human physiology." She pulled up a display showing chemical structures and biological data. Lucy did not understand most of it, but she understood the conclusion. "You're saying we can use these compounds to adapt ourselves," she said, "to become more like them." Nodded. "Not overnight. It will take years, maybe generations. But yes, we can enhance our bone density, our muscle efficiency, our resistance to radiation and toxins. We can become natives of this world." Lucy looked at the data, then looked at. The doctor's eyes were bright with possibility. "The Galactic Council sent us here to die," Lucy said slowly. "Instead, we're going to use this planet to make ourselves stronger than ever before." "Yes," said, "that's exactly what we're going to do." Outside the bunker, the yellow-green sky flickered with lightning, and somewhere in the distance, a predator roared. But inside, humanity was learning to fight back. The galaxy had tried to destroy them, and instead, it had given them the tools to become something new. Something the galaxy had never seen before. Something that would change everything. 5 years had passed since the first humans set foot on a prime, and the planet was no longer the same. Neither were the humans. Governor Lucy Morgan, as she was now called, stood on the observation platform of New Chicago, the largest human settlement on the planet. The city stretched across a mountain range that the colonists had hollowed out and reinforced over years of work. Massive doors protected the entrances from predator attacks, and weapons platforms watched the surrounding territory for any threat. But it was not the defenses that filled Lucy with pride. It was the people. 3 million humans now lived on a prime, nearly 1 million more than had arrived in the original colony ships. Families had grown. Children had been born. A new generation was rising, one that had never known any world but this one. And they were different from the humans who had come before. Dr. Lane's research had proven successful beyond anyone's expectations. The compounds she had discovered in native organisms could indeed be used to enhance human biology. Over the past 5 years, careful treatment programs had increased bone density by 40%, improved muscle efficiency by 30%, and made the human immune system nearly impervious to disease. The first generation of enhanced humans was now reaching adulthood. They were taller than their parents, stronger, faster. They could survive in atmospheric conditions that would kill an unmodified human in minutes. They healed from injuries that would have been fatal on Earth. Martinez was one of these new humans. She was 20 years old, born in the first year of the colony's existence. She had never seen Earth except in pictures, never breathed air that did not need to be filtered, never lived in a world where the sky was blue. She stood beside Governor Morgan on the observation platform, looking out at the settlement she called home. "The hunting party returned an hour ago," reported. "They brought down 2 of the great armored ones. No casualties." Lucy nodded. Hunting the massive predators that had once terrorized the colony was now almost routine. Park, now holding the rank of general, had trained a generation of soldiers who could track and kill creatures that had once seemed invincible. The hunts were not just about protection anymore. The predators provided resources that the colony needed. Armor plating that was stronger than any metal they could manufacture, biological compounds for the enhancement programs, meat that was perfectly safe once properly prepared. "The Council is waiting for you," said. "They want to discuss the expansion proposal." Lucy sighed. Even here, on a planet that had been meant to be their grave, politics never stopped. The Colony Council was made up of representatives from each of the major settlements, and they rarely agreed on anything. "Tell them I'll be there shortly," Lucy said. "I want to check on first." She found Dr. Lane in the main research facility, surrounded by equipment and data displays. The doctor was in her 60s now, her hair completely gray, but her eyes were as sharp as ever. The enhancement treatments had kept her healthy and active, and she showed no signs of slowing down. "Governor," said, looking up from her work, "I was hoping you would stop by. I have news." "Good news or bad news?" "Interesting news." Pulled up a holographic display showing genetic sequences. "We've been monitoring the children born here, the ones who were conceived after their parents received the full enhancement treatment. Their DNA is different from their parents' DNA." Lucy studied the display, trying to understand what she was seeing. Different how? "The enhancements we gave to their parents were temporary. Each generation needs new treatments to maintain them. But these children are different. The changes are written into their genetic code. They were born enhanced. Their children will be enhanced too." Lucy took a moment to process this information. "You're saying the changes are permanent now. We're evolving." "Yes," said. "In just 5 years, we've begun a process that normally takes thousands of generations. The pressure of this environment, combined with our enhancement programs, is driving human evolution at a rate that should be impossible." "The Galactic Council sent us here to die," Lucy said slowly. "Instead, we're becoming something new. Something better," added. "Something that this galaxy has never seen before." News of humanity's survival had spread through the galactic communication networks. At first, the elder races had dismissed it as exaggeration or propaganda. No species had ever survived on a Category 12 for more than a few years. The humans must be lying about their numbers, hiding their losses, putting on a brave face before the inevitable end. But the evidence was impossible to ignore. Long-range sensors detected the energy signatures of a growing civilization. Trade vessels that passed through the system reported seeing settlements on a world that should have been uninhabitable. And the occasional human ship that left a prime to gather resources from nearby systems showed technology that was more advanced than anything the exiled colonists should have been able to produce. The Collective, a minor power that had abstained from the exile vote, decided to investigate. They sent a diplomatic mission to a prime, led by an ambassador named Chorus of 17 Harmonies. Chorus was a crystalline being, her body made of living mineral that sang with every movement. She had been chosen for this mission because her species was known for their objectivity and their inability to lie. Whatever she reported would be accepted as truth by the Galactic Council. She spent 6 months on a prime, observing the human colony with growing amazement. She walked through their cities and watched their children play. She saw their soldiers hunt the great predators and their scientists unlock the secrets of the alien ecosystem. She spoke with Governor Morgan and General Park and Dr. Lane, trying to understand how this impossible survival had been achieved. When she returned to the core systems, her report sent shockwaves through the galactic community. "The humans have not merely survived," Chorus wrote. "They have thrived. They have taken a world of death and made it into a home. They have used its challenges to make themselves stronger, and they are still growing, still changing, still becoming something more." She described the enhanced humans in detail, their strength, their speed, their resilience. She explained the genetic changes that Dr. Lane had discovered, and she offered a warning. "We did not send them to a grave," Chorus concluded. "We sent them to a forge. Every year they spend on that planet makes them more dangerous. Every generation born there is stronger than the one before. If we do not make peace with humanity now, while they are still willing to talk, we may not get another chance." High Counselor read the report in his private chambers. His 4 purple eyes moved slowly across the text, taking in every word. When he finished, he sat in silence for a long time. For 10,000 years, the Empire had dominated this region of space. They had never faced a serious threat, never encountered a species that could challenge their supremacy. They had grown comfortable in their power, secure in their position at the top of the galactic hierarchy. Now, on a planet that should have been a death sentence, a new power was rising. A species that had been considered primitive and dangerous was becoming something unprecedented, and they had no one to blame but themselves. Felt something that his species had nearly forgotten how to experience. Something cold and uncomfortable that settled in his chest and would not go away. It was fear. And somewhere on a prime, a young woman named Martinez looked up at the yellow-green sky and smiled. She did not know about the ambassador's report or the counselor's fear. She only knew that this was her home, this was her world, and she was proud of what her people had become. The galaxy had tried to destroy humanity. Instead, it had made them stronger. And they were only getting started. The Border Patrol was the first to see them coming. A fleet of ships appeared at the edge of their sensor range, moving in perfect formation toward the heart of the Empire. The patrol commander, a veteran officer named As, stared at his display in disbelief. "Identify those vessels," he ordered. His sensor operator worked frantically at the controls. "Unknown configuration, Commander. The hull material does not match anything in our database, but the energy signatures are. They're human." Human. The word sent a chill through As that he did not want to acknowledge. 10 years had passed since the exile. 10 years since the Galactic Council had sent humanity to die on a. 10 years in which the elder races had tried to forget about the problem they thought they had solved. "How many ships?" Oz asked. 47 warships, Commander, all heavily armed. Their weapons systems are powered and active." Oz studied the approaching fleet. These were not the battered colony vessels that had carried humanity into exile. These ships were built for war. Their lines were sleek and aggressive, their hulls covered in armor that seemed to drink in the light. They moved with a confidence that spoke of power and purpose. "Contact the High Council," Oz said. "Tell them the humans have returned." Governor Lucy Morgan stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the patrol retreat before her fleet. She was 62 years old now, but she did not look it. The enhancement treatments had kept her body strong and her mind sharp. She felt better than she had in decades. Beside her stood General Park, his gray hair cropped short in military fashion. And next to him was Martinez, now 28 years old and serving as the colony's chief diplomatic officer. "They're running," observed. "Let them run," Lucy said. "We're not here to fight, not unless they force us to." The human fleet continued its advance into space, making no aggressive moves, but also showing no fear. They had come too far and fought too hard to be intimidated by the empire that had tried to destroy them. The negotiations were held on a neutral station at the border between territory and unclaimed space. Representatives from every major species in the Galactic Council had gathered to witness this moment. None of them knew what to expect. Lucy led the human delegation into the conference chamber. She was flanked by and Dr. Lane, now in her 70s but still active. Behind them came a dozen other representatives of the new humanity. High Counselor was waiting for them. His 4 purple eyes tracked the humans as they entered, noting every detail of their appearance and movement. They were different from the humans he remembered. Taller, more muscular, moving with a grace that spoke of power held carefully in check. Martinez drew particular attention. She was the tallest of the human delegation, standing over 6 feet in height. Her movements were fluid and precise, like a predator stalking prey. When her eyes met, he saw no fear in them, no uncertainty, only calm confidence. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with us," Lucy said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "I know this must be unexpected." "Unexpected is one word for it," replied. "Our projections indicated that your species would be extinct by now." "Your projections were wrong." Lucy did not say it with anger or triumph. It was simply a statement of fact. "We survived, we adapted, we grew." She gestured to the display systems in the chamber, activating a presentation that Dr. Lane had prepared. Images of a prime appeared, showing the cities that humanity had built, the farms that fed them, the factories that equipped them. 10 years ago, you sent 2 million humans to die on a world that had killed every species that ever set foot on it, Lucy said. Today, our population is nearly 10 million. Our technology rivals anything produced by the core worlds. Our soldiers are the finest in the galaxy. She paused, letting the council absorb this information. "We did not come here for revenge," she continued. "We could have. Our fleet is strong enough to challenge any single power represented in this room, but that is not who we are. We did not survive on a prime by making unnecessary enemies." Park stepped forward. "Our military capabilities speak for themselves. We can provide detailed specifications if the council wishes, but I want to be clear about something. We are not here to threaten. We are here to negotiate." "Negotiate what?" asked. Martinez answered. Her voice was calm and measured, but there was steel underneath. "A seat at the table, full membership in the Galactic Council, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails, recognition of our territory and our sovereignty, the same treatment you give to every other species in this community." The chamber erupted in murmurs. Full council membership was not easily granted. Species had to prove themselves over centuries before they were considered for such an honor, but continued speaking, her voice cutting through the noise. "I was born on a prime," she said. "I have never known any other home. My entire generation grew up on a world that you designed to be our grave. We learned to walk in twice Earth's gravity. We learned to breathe filtered air and drink purified water. We learned to hunt predators that could kill most of you in seconds." She stepped closer to the council table, and several of the alien delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "We are not the same humans you exiled 10 years ago. We are something new, something that this galaxy has never seen before, and we are not going away." Dr. Lane added her voice to the discussion. "I have spent the past decade studying what humanity has become. The changes we have are not temporary. They are permanent. Our children are born with enhancements that we had to acquire through treatment. Ours will be even more remarkable." She looked directly at. "You tried to use nature as a weapon against us. You thought that a hostile environment would do what your fleets could not, but you misunderstood something fundamental about humanity. We do not just survive hostile conditions. We thrive in them. We adapt and overcome. We get stronger." The chamber was silent. The assembled delegates stared at the humans with expressions that ranged from fear to fascination. Lucy Morgan spoke again. "We are offering you a choice. You can accept us as equal partners in this community, or you can try to oppose us. But I want you to think carefully about what that opposition would mean. We spent 10 years on it fighting for our survival every single day. We are not afraid of conflict. We are very, very good at it." The vote was held 3 days later. For the first time in the history of the Galactic Council, a species was granted full membership by unanimous decision. Not because the elder races wanted to welcome humanity into their community, but because they were afraid of what would happen if they refused. As Lucy Morgan accepted the formal documents that made humanity an equal partner in galactic affairs, She thought about all the people who had died to make this moment possible. The 7 who had fallen in the first hour on a prime. The hundreds who had died in the months that followed. The thousands who had given their lives so that humanity could survive and grow. She thought about the Council's decision to exile her species and how that act of cruelty had backfired so completely. They had meant to destroy humanity. Instead, they had forced humanity to become something greater than it had ever been before. And standing beside her, Martinez looked at the assembled council and smiled. She was a child of a prime, a daughter of and she was proud of what her people had become. The galaxy had tried to kill them. The galaxy had failed. And now the galaxy would have to live with the consequences. 25 years had passed since the exile, and the galaxy had changed in ways that no one could have predicted. The balance of power that had existed for 10,000 years was gone, replaced by something new and uncertain. And at the center of this new order stood humanity. Ambassador Martinez walked through the corridors of the Galactic Council station, her footsteps echoing off the polished floors. She was 48 years old now, but the enhancement treatments that flowed through her blood kept her body strong and her mind sharp. By human standards, she was barely middle-aged. By the standards of most galactic species, she was remarkably young for someone in her position. Delegates from a dozen worlds moved aside as she passed. Some nodded in greeting. Others avoided her eyes entirely, noted both reactions with the same calm acceptance. She was used to being feared and respected in equal measure. The council chamber was already filling when she arrived. Representatives from every major power had gathered for this session, their attention focused on the presentation that was about to deliver. "Distinguished colleagues," she began, her voice carrying easily through the vast space, "I come before you today to propose the next phase of galactic expansion." She activated the holographic display, showing a map of known space. Most of it was marked in the colors of various empires and federations, but there were large sections that remained blank, unexplored, unclaimed. "These regions have been avoided by every species in this community," continued. "Unstable nebulae, radiation zones, systems with conditions so extreme that no ship has ever returned from them. For you have treated these areas as barriers, impassable obstacles that define the limits of civilization." She zoomed in on one such region, a swirling mass of energy that looked like a wound in space itself. "We propose joint expeditions to explore and colonize these areas. Human ships, crewed by human crews, supported by technology and resources from the wider galactic community. Together, we can open paths that have been closed since the dawn of interstellar travel." A delegate raised his hand. "And what would humanity gain from such an arrangement? These expeditions would be extremely dangerous. Many of your people would die." Smiled. It was not a cruel smile, but there was something in it that made the delegate shift uncomfortably in his seat. "Growth," she said simply. "Challenge, the opportunity to become more than we are today. That is what drives us. It has always driven us. When you sent us to a prime, you thought you were destroying us. Instead, you gave us exactly what we needed to evolve. These expeditions will do the same." The vote passed easily. After 25 years, the galaxy had learned that it was easier to work with humanity than against them. And besides, if the humans wanted to throw themselves into the most dangerous regions of space, who were the elder races to stop them? After the session, returned to her private quarters and found a message waiting from her mother, Governor Lucy Morgan, now 87 years old but still active in the colonial government of a prime. "Congratulations on the vote," the message read. "Your grandmother would have been so proud. We are hosting a memorial next month for the 25th anniversary of landfall. The whole family is coming. I hope you can make it too." Saved the message and looked out the viewport at the stars. Somewhere out there, in the direction she could not quite see, was the world of her birth. That had made her people into what they were today. She thought about the journey that had brought humanity to this point. 25 years ago, 2 million humans had been loaded onto old ships and sent to die on a planet that had killed every species foolish enough to land there. They had arrived expecting extinction. Instead, they had found transformation. The first generation had survived through determination and sacrifice. They had learned the rules of their new world and used that knowledge to build a foothold where none should have been possible. They had lost friends and family to predators and storms and 1,000 other dangers, but they had not given up. The second generation, had been born into that struggle. They had grown up stronger than their parents, their bodies enhanced by treatments derived from native organisms. They had hunted the great predators for sport and built cities in places where no city should exist. They had looked at the yellow-green sky and called it home. And now the third generation was coming of age, born with enhancements written into their very DNA. They were taller and stronger than Evan's generation. They could survive conditions that would kill an unmodified human in minutes. They were the true natives of a prime, as adapted to that world as any of its other predators. Dr. Lane had passed away 5 years ago, peacefully, in her sleep. She had lived to see her research transform not just humanity, but the entire galaxy. The enhancement techniques she had developed were now used by species across the Council, allowing them to colonize worlds that had previously been beyond their reach. Her legacy would outlive the stars themselves. General Park had retired from active service, but he remained a legend among military circles. His tactics, developed in the killing fields of a prime, were now standard training at academies across a dozen systems. He had taught humanity how to fight, and humanity had taught the galaxy. Governor Lucy Morgan still led the original colony, guiding her people with the same steady determination that had kept them alive in those first desperate months. She was old now, even by the standards of enhanced humanity, but her mind remained sharp and her will remained unbroken. And herself had become something that none of them had anticipated: a diplomat, a voice for humanity in the halls of galactic power. The little girl who had been born in a survival camp was now one of the most influential figures in known space. She thought about the Galactic Council's decision to exile humanity all those years ago. It had been an act of fear and cruelty, designed to eliminate a threat before it could grow too strong to contain. And it had been the worst mistake in galactic history. Because humanity had not died on a prime. Humanity had evolved. Humanity had grown stronger. Humanity had become something unprecedented, something the galaxy had never seen before and would never be able to ignore again. The memorial on a prime was scheduled for next month. Made a note to attend. She wanted to stand before the wall where the names of the dead were carved and remember all those who had given their lives so that humanity could survive. She wanted to walk through the cities that had risen from nothing and see the children playing in streets that should have been impossible. And she wanted to look up at that yellow-green sky one more time and remember what it had felt like to be born on a world of death, and to know, even as a child, that her people would not just survive there. They would conquer it. Somewhere in the depths of space, New waited. Planets with conditions so extreme that no species had ever imagined settling them. Places where radiation storms could strip flesh from bone and predators grew to the size of mountains. Humanity was already planning expeditions to each of them. Because that was what humans did. They found the most dangerous places in the universe, and they made those places their own. They took challenges that should have destroyed them and used those challenges to become something greater. The galaxy had sent them to die. The galaxy had created the very thing it feared most. And now, 25 years later, the galaxy lived with the consequences. It watched as human ships pushed into the unknown. It saw human colonies rise on worlds that should have been uninhabitable. It learned, slowly and painfully, that humanity could not be contained. The Galactic Council had dreaded this outcome from the moment the humans survived their first year on a prime. They had hoped, in those early days, that nature would still do what they could not. They had watched the reports from thee and told themselves that surely, eventually, the humans would fall. But humanity had not fallen. Humanity had risen. And now the galaxy belonged to them as much as it belonged to anyone. Martinez turned away from the viewport and began preparing for her next meeting. There was work to be done, always more work. Expeditions to plan, alliances to maintain, a galaxy to shape. The exile was 25 years in the past, but its legacy would echo through the centuries to come. The galaxy had sent humans to and the galaxy would never stop dreading the outcome.